Okay, sorry, something's not going right with YouTube. Give me just a minute. Okay, Alderman Davis, you can start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Transportation and Commerce meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Oldenburg.
I think some of them are muted still.
I'm here, sorry, here.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Chairwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Cone. Alderman Muhammad. 4 present. You have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to now go to our agenda, and the next item, we will wait to excuse Alderman at the end of the meeting. We are not approving any minutes today. So we can move to our first item on the agenda, which is Board Bill 12. And we have the airport director present, and I will let you guide us, please.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for hosting this. I know these have been challenging and inconvenient times, but we appreciate this. With me this morning, I have Brian Kinsey. Brian Kinsey is our Air Service Development Director, and he is the one that deals with this particular topic. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian to have him present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having this for us this morning. What we're asking for is an ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a first supplemental agreement to the Airport Aid Agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Committee. Basically, what this is doing is it's extending the original agreement that was approved by this committee back on September 24th of 2019, and then fully approved by the city on December 9th, 2019. It's extending the term of that agreement by 6 months, so now will end in December of 2020. And the reason for this is the 9 commercial service airports in the state of Missouri received this grant money, and this gives those commercial service airports additional time to spend that grant money, because many of us stopped spending the marketing promotion money when air service dropped dramatically. It wasn't a right time to be spending promotion marketing money. We're going to hold off on that spend until a little bit later in the summer, and then get back to spending it at that time when demand starts picking up. So the state of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission allowed all the 9 commercial service airports to do that extension. And that's what we're asking for today, is simply an extension of that original agreement by 6 months.
Okay, any other anything else? I know that we had an opportunity to read this board bill, and it's pretty straightforward. I'll now go through the committee members and see if we have any questions. Alderman Vaccaro,
I have no problem with this bill.
okay. Alderman Oldenburg,
Unmute yourself. There you go.
No questions.
thank you, sir. Alderwoman Middlebrook,
I have no questions. Thank you.
thank you. I have no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. What board bill number is this? I'm sorry.
Board bill number 12.
I'll make a motion. We pass board bill number 12 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Chairwoman Davis.
Aye.
4 aye votes.
Okay, so with your vote, we have voted to pass out with a due recommendation for approval of board bill number 12. We can move on to our next item on the agenda, which is board bill number 28. And who's going to be making your presentation for you?
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes,
may I add something?
sure.
There are the representative Otis Williams and a few others from SLDC are in the process of trying to connect into the meeting to speak on it.
Okay. So when they're available, and I'll keep watching, whenever they have input, we will let them get on board. And I wanted to ask, so there's no one online yet for them?
Madam Chair, it's Jack. I was going to give some introductory remarks and then throw it to Otis and his team.
Okay, so you're sponsoring this bill?
Yes.
So we can allow you to get started, and then we'll add
Okay.
everybody else when they get on board.
Great.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairwoman Davis. Board Bill 28, of which there's a number of co-sponsors, including you, Madam Chair, is a bill to expand the existing boundaries of the Port Authority in the city of St. Louis to cover a stretch of sort of downtown and south of downtown, mainly to get a contiguous boundary over to the proposed site for the MLS Stadium. As you all are aware, we have passed a resolution and expressed the board's support for 3 1% taxes on the MLS site to help offset the construction costs of that project. Those 3 taxes are a transportation development district, which goes through the circuit courts for approval, a community improvement district, which is introduced this week and I believe will be taking up in Ways and Means in the coming weeks. And the third is a port improvement district, which in order to do so, the property must be located within a port authority as authorized under Chapter 68 of the Missouri Revised Code. Currently, the city of St. Louis has its entire riverfront, which I believe is 19 miles in the port district.
Communication Division is sending you the link.
And within
see.
that port district, the Port Authority has the power to bond, has the power to purchase property, obviously subject to the Port Authority board's approval. And those folks are appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the board. Matt McBride is currently the chair. I think many of you know Matt. Port districts are also eligible for a lot of state and federal grant money that otherwise is not available to the rest of the city. And they also now have the ability to create what's called I think it's an AIM zone, which is basically a redevelopment district that allows the Port Authority, a area designated by the Port Authority, to keep 1/2 of the state withholding taxes for new jobs created for infrastructure improvements. So I think that's another, good use of these port authorities in their expanded boundary. And I know, I think part of the improved boundaries, which you should be able to see attached to the board bill, is a map as Exhibit A. And it shows, the existing boundaries as well as the proposed improvements. So the proposed expansion is really just, a portion of sort of downtown up to Cole Street, and then heading out west into the 19th Ward, and then taking in some industrial areas south, mainly by Anheuser-Busch's campus in Alderman Gunther's ward. This was a result of, I know, previous attempts to expand the Port Authority citywide, which was met with some resistance. And I think the consensus was generally, let's expand it in a contiguous boundary to get to the soccer stadium and leave it at that, which is what we're attempting to do here. I'll answer any questions to the best of my abilities. I'm not an expert on port authorities by any stretch, but I can do my best if the committee members have questions until Otis and Susan are available.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, let's start with our committee members to ask you any questions that you are available to answer, and hopefully they'll be on board online by then. I wanted to ask our clerk to have them get on at least by phone, if nothing else.
We're working on that right now. Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. The first, Alderman Vaccaro.
So, Jack, I guess I should ask the alderman from Jack Posford ask questions.
Yes, he's going to be answering questions based
No,
do
on.
my
I
best.
think I'm supposed to ask you to ask him.
Oh, no, sir, go right ahead.
Bring it on.
Jack, I do have concerns. I see the old boundaries, I got it up. So this is taking part of the 9th Ward, part of the 6th Ward, part of the 19th Ward, part of the 15th Ward. And I see the blue line, I see the, so all these, from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, at that point, it gives the Port Authority the right to basically grant any kind of tax incentives or anything to any of those businesses that fall within that area. So even if an alderman in those areas, and I know a lot of it's yours, but it's a lot of it's others, and then I guess another question, more for the chairman, what's this have to do with the airport? If we're done with the airport, they don't even stay on if they don't want to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have said that earlier. Thank you.
We're just wasting their time.
Director and your staff, you're free to leave. We've taken care of the business of Board Bill 12.
Okay, I just didn't want to leave if there was additional questions that came
I
up.
do
Thank you.
understand, and I appreciate your being polite. Thank you.
And
Jack, that's my big question. I don't know that I could support this. I'll be honest with you, and I think it's going to be met when it gets to the board with a lot of resistance.
so if I can speak to some of that, obviously a large portion of my ward is already, the 7th Ward is already within the Port Authority's district, the existing lines. So I'm familiar and work with the Port District regularly on grant proposals and everything else. Port authorities under Missouri law do have the ability to tax abate, and they do have the ability to use eminent domain. I've never experienced either of those. I know that the Port Board, I've never experienced a situation where the Port Board has gone around me to issue tax abatement that I wasn't in support of. In fact, I don't even know that if we've used its tax abatement under Chapter 68. Generally, we do tax abatements under Chapter 99 or 100, and I believe Otis will speak to that more because that was a concern of, I know a number of aldermen, and in fact, and he's sort of committed to not doing that as part of this expansion. And your second point, Alderman, about it taking in some other wards, these boundaries were agreed to by the aldermen in those wards. And they're listed as co-sponsors. I don't see Alderwoman Hubbard listed as a co-sponsor. I don't know if that's a mistake or if she just never replied, but the other aldermen whose wards are impacted by this have signed off on these boundaries.
Yeah, it's heavily, I mean, I'm looking at, I don't know, like I say, and not any other reason, I don't know that I can support this. I have concerns that when the aldermen start giving up their a right to vote on stuff, and I've already run into things with them where it's their way and that's it. And, and when you try to talk to them, you don't even get callbacks. I'm sure you probably got the 3 votes you need. Well, maybe. Or you might want to wait till you have other people come on to get the votes. I have issues with it. I have issues with the aldermen giving up the right to say, no, we don't want something, or we do want something. And a lot of projects and stuff that are going on in these areas, you take, it's just my opinion, and Jack, certainly you can correct me on, it's just us here, but I think having the aldermen give up their say on anything is hard or bad. And I think you're gonna have a tough time getting this through, even if it gets out of committee.
Thank you, Alderman. I guess I don't see it as us giving up our authority as aldermen. We have every right to, vet people that we put on the Port Authority board. We have the right to weigh in at those meetings. In the years I've been down here, I've had little to no problems with the Port Authority and working with them. In fact, they've been of great benefit to some of the industrial and riverfront parts of my ward, where I've been able to secure federal funding that's otherwise unavailable to the city of St. Louis, simply because it's in the Port District. I would also add, this is something, that we expressed a willingness to do as part of our resolution in support of MLS. And lastly, I would say we're using economic development tools that the state of Missouri has basically said you can take advantage of. You can take our withholding taxes, state taxes, and keep them for infrastructure within your city if you pass one of these port districts. So I think we're taking good advantage of economic development tools at our disposal. We're honoring our commitment to supporting a port boundary that extends to the MLS site. And we also have the buy-in of the aldermen whose wards are impacted.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I don't see myself supporting this.
That's fine.
And I see what happened in the county, and I look at what happened earlier when they were over aggressive and trying to basically make the whole city part of the Port Authority. So I guess I have concerns. So at this point, I just kind of let you know where I'm at on this. If you're counting votes, you may want to hold this to another meeting if you don't have them. If you're counting votes, I don't see myself being on this, at least not right now. I'd have to do a lot more thinking and research before I would be a yes vote.
Understood. Thanks, Alderman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now go to Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Jack. I see SLDC's joined us now, right? That's great.
Yes.
I had a couple of questions for them, Alderman Kotar, if that's all right.
It's fine by me.
Given that there's kind of multiple wards and neighborhoods getting blended here, and it looked like it felt like the boundary was strategically drawn. But Otis, can you or anyone at SLDC talk about, was the boundary also drawn intentionally to also help some other areas, or align where there's other development or other potential planned development too, so they can utilize this additional economic development tool? Can't hear you. No.
Are you unmute? Unmute yourself.
Didn't look like he was muted.
Just isn't
He
working.
doesn't seem to be muted. It says he's connecting to audio. That's good.
Oh, okay.
So he's getting close. Da-na-na-na.
Susan should be able to talk if she has an answer for it.
Susan, did you hear that question by chance? We can give them a few more seconds, Madam Chair. I mean, the upshot of my question just is, I know why we obviously were doing this in support of MLS is one of the main drivers, but I just wanted to double check to the extent that why they were drawing those lines. And it looks like they were somewhat intentional. Were there other, were they intentional in terms of outlaying other economic development planning or other potential development areas that could utilize, again, as Alderman Kotar laid out?
Well, I know that I do have some additional development in my ward
Yeah.
that could use this tool as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did my homework on was to make sure that where it has been used, there was never any method or way that they could avoid the alderpersons. That's important to me. And even the state statute that is written says that if there is anything that the Board of Aldermen would normally vote on, it should come before them. So that means that if I have a development that I am supporting and it has to go through HUD and all that, I can make that determination whether or not I want to use that tool. So I don't see where anything is taken away from me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you. When you start talking about an economic development incentive package, whether or not there's tools available from the state, the very first point of contact by any risk taker, business or economic development professional or real estate developer has always been, in my understanding and in my experience, the first conversations with the alderperson.
And some of our other cities, Kansas City uses it extensively, very successfully.
Yep.
St. Charles, St. Louis County. We are the ones who have actually not given all the benefit we could to various developments in order for them, for the first thing is to be attractive for developers to come in because there are other tools there. And then secondly, to make sure that we get the best benefit. And that's what I'm looking for.
Gotcha.
Madam Chair, it's
Yes.
Jack. Otis is on. He said he needs them St. Louis TV to approve his phone access. He's dialed in by phone. His phone number ends in 3703.
Okay.
If St. Louis TV could
Got
get him access to talk.
Executive Director approved here, for Pete's sake.
Got it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh,
You
there's
can.
Otis.
Okay,
Your credentials
All right,
passed, Otis, just barely to get on here.
Otis, can
Well,
you
thank
hold on? Otis, can you hold on for a second? Because I started the questions for Jack's presentation, and I want to make sure everybody who had a question can get that answered first, and then we'll come back to you and we'll move on from there, okay?
Okay, well, Madam Chair, I wanted to answer Alderman Piccaro's question, or at least comment on it.
Okay. Oh, something's going on there.
If am I okay to speak to that?
Okay, yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so I think what the Alderman voiced were the concerns with the previous board bill, and we did make accommodations for that. And so this time what we decided to do was not involve all of the Board of Aldermen, but only speak to the area within the automatic boundaries of the sponsors, with the exception of the Fifth Ward, where we have not been able to coordinate with Alderwoman Hubbard. But most of what is in the Fifth Ward was probably already there, with the exception of the added portion just to the north of the dome. And so there is no, we have struck an agreement, or at least in the ordinance, we are suggesting that we would not do eminent domain or any of tax abatement or anything without coming back to the Board of Aldermen. And in each case, we always will coordinate with the appropriate alderman. And in this case, what we did was to meet with Alderman Gonther and with Alderman Coulter, Alderwoman Davis, and Ingracia. And we're working to accommodate the boundaries as they desire them. We did that with Alderman Gonther by expanding some portions of it. We contracted in the Sixth Ward at the request of Alderwoman Ingracia. And I think, I think we were doing that to accommodate them. And so I think that there should not be any issue, I think, with the remaining areas within the city. But that said, it would be absolutely wonderful if we did have the entire city, because of the benefits that are reaped. We are the only jurisdiction in the state of Missouri where the boundary of the court is not coterminous with the jurisdictional boundary.
That is
and
true.
so and part of the benefits that can be gained are huge, in the sense that particularly with the Ames zone, we would be able to, if we were attracting a business and they were in agreement, there'd be huge infrastructure dollars that could be gained through for support of the areas around it. So I will end there and then maybe answer other questions as other committee members may have.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, I think Alderwoman Middlebrook, do you have any questions at this point? We're going to come back around again. Okay, unmute yourself.
Oops, I'm sorry, I have no questions.
All right, thank you. I see that Alderman Cohen has joined us. Sir, do you have any questions at this point, or would you like the presentation to continue and we come back around again? Unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I had to wait for SLTV to unmute me. So my question is actually for Otis, since we have him on the line. Otis, how does this align with the Equitable Economic Development Plan?
It does. It's not directly mentioned in the Equitable Economic Development Plan, but the idea of expanding opportunity is, fits that model. Our purpose for this one was primarily, though, to move from the original boundary of the base boundary of the port, to move it down to the center corridor to get to the MLS site. That was the primary purpose. But in the course of doing that, we wanted to provide other opportunities along the way, and that is what I was speaking to as far as coordinating the boundaries with the other aldermen that were impacted.
So, how long have we been working on that Equitable Economic Development Plan now? 2 years?
About 14 months, but 15 months.
Okay. So we've been working on it for 15 months. This has been introduced now in 2 different sessions of the Board of Aldermen. Why wouldn't something like this, which is supposedly a major economic development tool, not be referenced in that development plan?
Well, I mean, we have all these tools, and not all of them are in our plan. I think we indirectly mentioned.
But the expansion of the boundaries of the Port Authority should be listed in any type of economic development plan, should it not?
Alderman, we'll be happy to take a look at that. And right now we have the plan out for review. And if that is one thing that you think should be there, we will, take that in consideration. It was not, because we talked about, we look at the boundary, the port boundary as something very similar to our TIF boundaries, our tax abatement and all those things. So it's just another tool. But we can, I'd be happy to work with you to get the appropriate language you think that should be in there. Right now, it does not specifically speak to the expansion.
So it's just concerning to me that we're in the process of developing and rolling out an economic development plan, and we're not incorporating items like this into that plan. And I understand that it's just a tool, but it's a tool that's currently limited and confined to the riverfront itself. And now we're having a conversation about expanding the boundaries to be able to utilize that tool in other parts of the city, but that's not expressly spelled out in any economic development plan that we have or that we're planning to have. So it seems misaligned. Either this particular plan to expand the Port Authority or the economic development plan. I think that something needs to align here, and it's disappointing that it hasn't. The other question I have is, it seems to me that if this is aligned with an economic development plan, that it should be encompassing everything that we need it to encompass from a geographical perspective, and should not be based solely on whether or not you were able to access a particular alderperson. If I'm hearing you correctly, you left out the 5th Ward because you just weren't able to get a hold of Alderwoman Hubbard.
No, we didn't. It does include the 5th Ward. I'm just saying that she was not directly coordinated with, only because we were not able to
connect. That's fine. So, but I guess one of the things that we discussed when this was introduced previously, why would we not expand the Port Authority to include all of the major rail lines that run through the city? So if we're coordinating economic development efforts, which that plan that you sent us earlier this week, sadly and sorely is missing. If we're actually coordinating our economic development efforts, don't you think that we should be incorporating a major form of transit and distribution throughout our city, and that the Port Authority, whose boundaries we're expanding, should be inclusive of all of the areas that are surrounding major railroads throughout the city, which this board bill does not do?
Alderman, the reason that this board bill doesn't is because the last board bill, which did include all of it,
the last board bill included the entire city, not just the areas. So my ward has a major railroad that runs through it. It's not included in this board bill. There's a lot of wards that don't have rail lines that are running through them that probably should be included in this board bill. And it was discussed the last session when we introduced this with both yourself and Susan. So I'm a little disappointed that we're here again and having the same conversation. It just does not seem very well thought out. It seems like this is being used as a political tool to advance a particular agenda item and not aligned with any particular plan.
Was there any other questions, Alderman Cohen?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
All right, thank you. The only thing I wanted to share at this moment is we have a draft of an economic development plan, and we have been asked to make suggestions to improve it, to delete information, whatever is needed. And I am going to say to all of us that we should definitely take the time to do that.
Did they just mute the chair?
She muted
The bill.
accidentally.
Because we have been working, trying to find ways to support our developments. And this is one of those ways. And we have come up with a contiguous boundary where all of us have agreed upon. And at any point in time, any other older person would like to do that, they can. But we've made an agreement to do this. And I would not stand in the way to prohibit any other alderman that thought that there was a tool that they could use that would not hurt anyone else. And it's not going to hurt our wards. It's going to enhance our developments and give us one step up on having the ability to move forward and have a good development project. I am also interested in having the entire municipality. We are the only municipality that is not, the entire boundaries are not included for the Port Authority. We're the only ones. Everybody else has been using this tool and making things happen in their cities, and we're still being archaic. But at the end of the day, it is still anyone's right to have their opinions. My opinion is that this is good. It is another tool that I can use. And I can go back to the first time they talked about using a TIF or a tax abatement. People were leery then, and people are still leery. You will always have some questions. But I'd like to move forward. I'd like to have the opportunity to use this tool in my ward. And I know factually that actually for the city of St. Louis, most especially the last 15 or 20 years, we've not done, and everybody's fearful of eminent domain. The only time we threatened eminent domain, I think we would have gone through with it if we had not been able to do what we needed to do with the Paul McKee land in regards to the NGA project. I kind of believe every alderman would have voted for that. But we don't take people's property. That's not who we are. That's not required. I got some strange developments over here we built around somebody's house because they didn't want to sell it. And they don't have to. So I just like to hopefully have an understanding that this is not anything other than our ability to do what we believe is best for our upcoming developments in our wards and an additional tool to use. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to Otis to see if there's anything else he needed to add before I come back to Alderman Coder to close.
None other Alderwoman and to the board members. If there are things that you would like for us to do, please let us know. I think this board bill is a sort of what I thought was a compromise to the objections that we had last time. The economic development framework of plan that we forwarded out for comment does reflect all of our employment centers, all of the major areas where we would be looking to focus and expand. It does not mean that we won't, look at other things, but as you look at a framework, you need to figure out where you want to provide priority and where the quote, the biggest bang for our buck is. Most of, I believe Alderman Cone was referring to the rail line. If there's not a node where the rail stops, it really is a rail that is just passing through an area. But if there are stops where distribution and transportation can be affected, we most definitely want to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that's what we tried to do, is to outline that in the.
There is one of those in the 25th ward that runs along Gustine.
Right. And so if that was a spot that was overlooked, that is one where we're asking that we would
Is it
definitely
a-
make that one of the places where we will include. So
Yeah, it's a spur that runs off of the main rail line and goes along Gustine. There's also a few in the 24th ward as well that's not included in this.
okay, these spurs go directly to some location there where there's
Yes,
they-
along Gustine, there's an entire business, a light industrial business corridor, which I believe I've given you a tour of.
right.
The rail line runs, the spur runs along there, correct? Yes.
Okay, all right. So we will make that change or addition for sure. And those are the kind of checks and balances that we are hopeful will come forth. If we have omitted something, just let us know. Okay. But I'm hopeful though that this would not, the effort to get this board bill passed does not cause us to not do
And I-
what I think is the right thing for this particular board bill, is to hopefully the board members will pass it out. Thank you.
Also, if by chance, Alderman Cohen, you and maybe a connecting alderperson or something that line services with distribution sites, if you would like to come back and have that same opportunity for your wards with this Port Authority assistance, we would gladly support that. But make sure that it gets included in the economic development plan. That's why
we will. In fact, when I end here, I will make sure that I speak with our consultant just to make sure, and also connect with Alderman Cohen just to make sure that we've got all the things that he.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that we have is we have a lot of turnover in our offices as well. And even though you have maps and everything else, sometimes we miss things. And that's why it's sent to us so that we can double check. And because we know our wards better than anybody else, because we in them on every street and every corner. And we can make those adjustments. I appreciate that. I'm going to go through again and make sure that our questions have been answered. I think that's important. So I'll start with you, Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Vaccaro? Okay, he's not responding. So we'll go to Alderman Oldenburg.
Unmute. I couldn't unmute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you can come back to me. That's fine. I kept trying to unmute and it wouldn't let me unmute. But go on and I'm sorry, what?
Sir, did you have any additional questions?
No, I said what I had planned and just kind of cautioned that Jack would count his votes before he asks for one, because I don't see myself as a yes vote.
I
I don't want
understand.
to be an obstructionist, but I don't see myself voting yes.
All right, sir. Thank you. Where was I at? Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Chair. No, the director of SLDC answered my questions with, it sounds like with what they were working with, they were strategic in including employment centers, areas that are planned for development and growth with the space they did have to work with. If this were solely a directive of one, or there was a driver of one here, I would have envisioned the Port District going just down west one little narrow street and expanding just in the area of the stadium. So it did look like SLDC, with what they had to work with, did their homework here, and I thank the director for that and the folks over there. So I have nothing further.
Thank you, sir. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No, my questions was answered, so thank you.
All right. I'm going to go back to one other thing that I did not mention. I'm really afraid because we need to have as many tools available as soon as possible. after this pandemic is over, it has already been indicated by corporate America that a minimum of 50% of their workers will return to offices, probably less, more like 40% will return. So we're going to have some problems with a lot of empty buildings. We've got to be creative. We've got to have every tool in the toolbox ready to go. We're going to have to deal with all these office buildings, and all of them along that corridor that we're talking about right now, some of the huge ones. So I'm glad that we're finally getting something else to work with. Alderman Kotar, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the questions and the committee's interest in this topic. I think I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do think this is a good step. We're utilizing some economic development tools at our disposal. Someone on Twitter I don't know if I misspoke earlier, but I want to make clear if AIM zones are created under this to withhold state taxes, the infrastructure, any infrastructure improvements to that would have to be used within that district, which I think makes sense. I don't know if I didn't make that clear. I think this is a good first step. If there are additional areas that people are interested in, and we can further amend the map and add more boundary with the support of those particular aldermen, that's something I'm more than willing as the primary sponsor to entertain on the floor, either through an amendment or a floor sub. But I would ask you for your favorable consideration so we can get this out of committee today and keep it moving. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I am looking here. Oh, there you are. Okay. I was trying to make sure everybody was still on. There's been a lot of comment. We have had, I think, a very thorough and robust discussion. As we have stated before, we're not asking anyone that is not supportive to like this. Individual alderpersons have looked at this. We've discussed it individually and collectively, and we do know and understand what this tool can do. And we also understand if there's anything that we would normally vote on by a committee of the Board of Aldermen and then going to the full Board of Aldermen, that would not change. So a development project would still have to come through HUD or any other incentives, and that alderperson has that right at any point to say, no, I'm not going to use it, or yes, I am going to use it. So I don't see anything taken away. Madam
Chair, if I can just add, there's a commitment from the Development Authority to always work with aldermen, and for the couple of times that we have used tax abatement through the Port Authority, it was through the aldermen that we worked. The last one was PSC Metals, and I believe that was the 11th ward. Was it the 11th ward? PSC could have two locations, one in 11th and one in the 2nd ward. But each time, though, they were passed through with a Board of Aldermen resolution. And so we are committed to not, as I think Alderman Carr is afraid that we will usurp our powers and be bad. But that is not what we have done historically, and we will not.
But you can. But you can. Even though you say verbally you agree, you don't have to.
But in practice, that's what we've done, Alderman. That's what I'm saying. There are a lot of things out there that that could be done. But if we have an agreement and we have passed it through by ordinance, I would call it political suicide on my part to try and do something other than what we have agreed.
Yeah, I just, if you're counting votes, I've been pretty clear. I'm not going to be a yes vote. I'm definitely a no vote.
Yes, sir. I I would like to entertain a motion on this board bill number 28.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass out with the due pass recommendation, Board Bill 28.
I'll
Second.
second. I hear a second from Alderwoman Middlebrook. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Coro,
No.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Chairwoman Davis.
Aye.
3 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 1 present.
You have voted to pass board bill number 28 with a due pass recommendation. And I thank you for that. I thank everyone who participated. And
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And this discussion will continue. The next item on the agenda is for us to excuse the alderpersons, because I told you I would leave that at the end. So I have Alderman Boyd, Alderman Muhammad that were absent today, and we shall excuse them. The next item on our agenda, does anybody have any announcements that they need to make or any other discussion? Hearing none, we can move to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you so much for your attendance today. And I love this robust discussion. And make sure everybody looks at that economic development plan and put your thoughts to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.